Prince Harry's legal battle against the British tabloids was supposed to start today, but now it's in chaos, as many outlets are reporting he may actually take a settlement. Welcome to Popcorn Palace. I am Andy Signor. So glad to be back here with John Witherspoon. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you? It's a little cold in D.C., but we're muddling through.
It's cold here in Florida, too. It's never supposed to be cold here, and it is. It's snowing in Texas, and it's going to snow here. We are in a crazy timeline. But yeah, speaking of crazy timelines, the thing that Prince Harry said he would never do, John, he would never bow down. This was about justice, not about money. And he would see this through to the end. He would fight these dirty tabloids all the way, no matter the cost. Yet today, the first day of the trial, it seems they're trying to figure out a way to settle. Big shocking news. Now, look, I've started to look a little bit more into this. That's why I wanted to bring John in here to get a better sense of what's actually happening. The court was supposed to see the case starting today, but it didn't. Prince Harry was not there. But there was talk of settlements, and the judge was giving them delays after delays, and then stopped after a third request for a delay. But the judge was informed that due to time differences, they were not able to get this done, implying heavily, I think, that Prince Harry was asleep at home and unaware and unavailable to do this, John. It's kind of crazy. So they were unable to reach Harry, and therefore the settlement wasn't able to happen, and now this whole case is now in a limbo, chaos, trying to figure out, will it even proceed? I guess I want to start with this, John. Just who do you think looks worse in a settlement? Harry or Rupert Murdoch and all the tabloids?
Oh, absolutely. Harry looks worse, without any question at all. The reason is that everybody else has settled. This has been going on for 6 years, I believe. Everybody else except for one other person has settled with the newspaper, and Harry has insisted all along, and in fact, as recently as a couple of weeks ago when he was at that New York Times book summit, he basically said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that he was doing God's work because he was one of the only people who had the wherewithal and the means to see this through and basically achieve some level of accountability from the other side in this case. Now, all of a sudden, here we are, the morning that the trial is supposed to open, all kinds of delays. Apparently, the judge is not happy from a couple of reports that I've seen. And in fact, both sides have asked the judge for more time to negotiate and kind of figure things out to put together a settlement package. The judge basically said, no, listen, I'm sick of this. I want this trial to start. You guys can continue to negotiate, but I want to start the actual court proceedings as though we're going to see this through. And he then was hit with a request by both sides, Harry's side and the newspaper side. They said, look, we're not going to necessarily want to do that. We want to appeal your demand to start this trial. We want to appeal that to a higher court. I'm not sure exactly where that stands right now. But anyway, the takeaway from what was supposed to be day one is that really nothing has transpired. The interesting thing is that they might have been able to put together a settlement and wrap it up and get it over with, except for the fact that, according to one person who walked out of the courthouse and talked to some reporters, the comment that he made was they're having trouble getting instructions from him being Harry, because of the time difference. And when this gentleman made that comment, somebody else in the crowd said, which means he's asleep. Because Los Angeles is 8 hours behind London. So the thing and again, this is speculation.
How do you not wake up early for this?
That's a random comment from a man standing on the sidewalk who's part of the press pool. But the interesting thing about it from a legal perspective is that if you were going to engage in settlement talks, it's one of a number of different scenarios that crop up during legal proceedings when you need to be able to reach your client immediately. And Harry obviously knew that there were potentially settlement talks that were going to be undertaken today. And I'm sure that his lawyer said to him, okay, you need to be available on the phone in case we have questions or in case we need to talk to you for whatever reason. And somehow that didn't happen. And that is just bizarre, I think, from my perspective as an attorney, because as I said, it's one of those scenarios where you need to have instant access to a person on a
Yeah,
30-minute or
it's
45-minute recall.
it's his case. He knows when the case is, and if he doesn't, you ask your lawyer. You check with your lawyer the night before. When's the case? When should I be on standby? I mean, it's just common sense. The fact that he's not is highly offensive. Now, I do want to push back a little bit. Let's hear this out because look, and this is the New York Times reporting here too. But the fact that it's like if Harry accepts the settlements, it would spare him heavily financial risk. Under English law, he'd be required to pay the legal costs of both sides, which could run into tens of millions of dollars if the court does not award him an amount similar to what basically they're offering in a settlement. So they can throw a lot of money at him and then they sort of risk, they up their chances of getting their money back if Harry says no, which they assume he's going to say no. And then obviously for Fox News Group, or for News Group rather, it averts weeks of damaging testimony, phone hacking, and other methods used, which they've admitted to doing for some stuff has already sort of been out there that they look bad. I do. There is a question me like, well, can he really afford it? He's got no money, John. Where's all this money coming from? At a certain point, do you think that is actually causing some pressure to Harry, given that everything's sort of closing in on them and they don't have the resources they once did? It's such an expensive lifestyle they live. How can he afford to keep this lawsuit going?
That's a really, really good question. You're absolutely right. And it raises the question about what are Harry and Meghan's finances? Harry has insisted effectively all along that, again, he's in a unique position because of free time on his hands or the amount of wealth that he has available to see this through all the way to the end. And as I said, to effectively do God's work in getting some accountability. But now all of a sudden, as you've said, Andy, that's a great question. Why all of a sudden is he capitulating? And not necessarily capitulating, but why is he backing off this bold assertion that he's made all along that he wants to go through with this and he wants the responsible people to be held accountable? It's a great question. And
let's be clear too. Like I do think we all want to be hard on Harry. I get it, and he deserves a lot of it, I would argue, but this battle is pretty worthy of fighting. I do believe there was a lot of shenanigans going down. There were questionable methods. So this is like one of those things I wish I could be rooting for Harry with, right? I do genuinely wonder who did this, and whoever did it should be exposed and pay the penalty. And these organizations are extremely wealthy. So look, I'm torn on it all, but I will acknowledge it's a terrible look to be asleep at the beginning of your case when you're fighting all this, and now after swearing up and down you weren't going to settle, now seemingly considering a settlement, something smells fishy here and something's off. Surprisingly, with Prince Harry, something's off. But yeah. I guess what do you suspect is going to happen? Do you think come tomorrow and the judge comes back, if they don't have a deal, like they got to continue and move forward with the case, correct? The judge isn't going to sit there and just keep letting them delay, right?
That's right. And again, that's the impression that I get from watching some comments that people made to the press out on the sidewalk. And by the way, I just want to point out, allegedly asleep. Not that there's anything wrong with getting a good night's sleep.
Could have been a delay. Could have been the lawyer just blaming him to sort of for their own faults. There could be a million reasons why. Fair. But the lawyer seemingly implying they couldn't get a hold of him because of time differences is safe assumption that.
Yeah, well,
it's a big time difference in LA.
If it's noon in the UK and you can't get in touch with somebody in Los Angeles because of a time difference, well, it's 4 in the morning. So I mean, what are most people doing at 4 in the morning? They're snoozing away. So as far as what I think is probably going to happen, I think the two sides are going to come in tomorrow, and they're probably going to announce a settlement deal right off the bat. Because if they don't do that, the judge has already said, listen, I'm tired of the shenanigans. I want to move along with this trial. And I don't think either side probably seems to want to do that at this point. So I suspect that tomorrow morning, first thing, it's going to be a case of, hey, Your Honor, we've got a package put together. Prince Harry has signed off on it. News Group has signed off on it. And we're ready to put this to rest.
Hmm.
So we may not know exactly what the details of that are. In the United States, when there's a settlement like that, in a lot of cases, it's a confidential settlement. So we don't know. But
Which would be incredibly horrible of him to do a confidential settlement, because it's supposed to be all about transparency and these agencies, paying their due. So if he really does a confidential settlement tomorrow, well, that's gonna be horrible for him. No.
Yes and no, because I think when you reach a settlement, invariably, it's almost.
I don't see him doing it unless they're gonna take some fault. Like, that's what I wonder. Do you think there's a version of this where they will admit to wrongdoing? Harry seems too stubborn. He may realize, they don't want to deal with it, and so there's probably going to be a blanket. We accept, responsibility. It's not going to happen again. Like, do you think there's a version of them at least acknowledging that, along with a confidential sack of money?
Yes, I think so. In a lot of cases, they'll come out and they'll say this is neither an admission or we're not making any comments about our level of culpability. I suspect in a case like this, Harry would probably be satisfied if they came out and said, we did it. I think everybody knows they did it. I mean, that's not really an issue at this point. Or at least they're
not to interrupt, but it's like that's the whole point of why he was saying he wouldn't back down, because I agree. It seems like you should be able to catch these guys, right? And so stick it to them as hard as you can, Mr. Prince Harry with unlimited resources, who apparently has it all. It's going to be a bad look if he settles it, but knowing him, he'll do it with some sort of quote or something that he uses as his justification. But at the end of the day, don't you think it is a bad look if he ultimately settles before the case even begins?
Oh, I agree. I agree, especially in light of, as I said, all these protestations that he's made all along, and all these assertions about, I'm the one that's going to get to the bottom of this. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, guess what? You've changed your mind, and you're not, all this, big, I'm Mr. Fancy so-and-so. And all of a sudden, oh gosh, I'm not the big, savior for humanity that I've kind of proclaimed to be all along. But the other thing is, and I'm sure his lawyers are telling him this too, you got to pick hills to die on. I mean, he's kind of made his point. This has been very highly publicized. The whole world, at least the whole world that cares about Prince Harry, has paid very close attention to this. So in a way, he's kind of achieved his objective, but he's also got some other problems going on. His lawyers and his PR people may have said to him, hey, look, you may pull this off, but if you don't, boy, you've really now gotten yourself into a deep hole. They are just on a winning streak of bad publicity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, there's rumors
so many ways.
Rumors in that Vanity Fair piece, which we'll get to, guys. I'm sorry I haven't reached, but she was shopping a book about her divorce. Like, there's a lot of weird stuff that's coming in. So look, there's a lot more we'll be reporting on. I wanted to give you an update tomorrow. It sounds like we'll have another update regarding what actually happens tomorrow. So stay tuned, John. I appreciate it. If you guys want to learn more and follow John, make sure you go follow him over on Insta. You got to post more, my brother. Come on, post some stories. Get some stuff on there, John. Witherspoon DC. You can follow me there on Instagram. We want to hear more from you, dude. Appreciate you coming in here. You guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to Popcorn Palace. Hit that bell for all alerts. Smash that like button as well and leave a comment down below. And over on Planet, we got an exclusive 10 minutes of raw footage from It Ends With Us. Blake Lively, I think she needs to be put in the same place as Megan Amber. It is looking awful for her. Make sure you're catching that story as well. Appreciate you guys watching. Stay tuned. We got a lot more updates regarding this and so much more.